Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Kim Barrett Show. I'm your host, Kim Barrett, and on today's episode, we have Mr. Caleb Guilliams. He's joining us all the way from across the pond, overseas, over in the United States, working in Canada, US, all over. And now, in this episode, we dive into wealth and wealth creation. And you'll probably see, and you'll probably wonder if you watch this episode, why is this 10-year-old child educating me on wealth and finance? Now, I kid, but he's one of the youngest people ever to be running an investment fund, one of the youngest people ever to be working in investment banking, but he has some proven, formulated fundamentals. So if you've ever gone, I want to know more about wealth creation, about improving my wealth, this is an episode that you do not want to miss. And of course, if we can help you get wealthier through your marketing, head over to www.marketingmogul.com.au where we've got your back when it comes to all things marketing and advertising. But until then, let's jump into the show. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
I'm excited to have you here. And I always like to start off this question, the same question to everyone. So if you and I met and we're out at a party, number one, everyone's going to be like, what's this young kid doing here? He probably can't drink. I don't know why he's at this party. But if I met you at a party and said, Caleb, what is it that you actually do? What's your go-to answer?
It depends if I like you or not. I'll give you different answers.
Let's just assume that you like me, first of all.
Yeah. Besides being carded for every time because I look like I'm 15 years old, I would say something like, I'm in the financial service business. I'm in the business of helping people use money as a tool so that they can live more intentionally. And that's code for helping people use money well and efficient so that they can live the life that they want. And so that's what BetterWealth is. And that's what I do.
And how have you found it? Because obviously, as you mentioned, and for anyone, if you're listening to this on audio, you definitely want to check out the video and see how young Caleb does look because you look much older now, right? But you've obviously gone through a period of time where you went into the finance industry at 19, right?
Yeah.
And then you're telling people how to use money more effectively. They're probably like,
yeah. I'm used to it, man. When I started working at a bank when I was 17 years old, I've always been really short for my age, and also I struggle with reading. So I had a kind of a rough upbringing. I didn't think I was going to amount to anything, quite frankly. Worked at a bank, worked in our investment department when I was 19 years old, took over the bank's investment department, becoming one of the youngest people in the States to have that responsibility. And I always call it the 10 minutes of horror because when clients would come in, I think they would assume like I was like an assistant or maybe a teller. And so they would come in for their investment checkup, and I would usher them into my office. I had like a corner office, shut the door, and you could just see like their faces get like just stone cold. They're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And so I've just learned I really learned to embrace it. And I grew so much from just that experience. And I realized a couple things. Number one, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. I really, that's a cliche statement, but I believe that. Number two, I really started to understand how to listen and really seek people's why statements. Most people don't even know why they want to do what they want to do. And if we can be in any industry, by the way, if we can understand how to articulate someone's why, they will feel understood. And no matter how young they look, I'm a perfect example of this. No matter how young you look, you can help them and get through to them and communicate well. And then I was obsessive about learning. And I had some of the best minds in money teach me. And so from 19 to 21 is where I worked at the bank. And when I graduated college, ironically, I graduated a year early. I never thought I would have even got through college originally. I graduated college and I knew I had to live my one life well. And working at the bank was only going to take me so far, to the point that I knew I had a message that I needed to share with the world. And so I became one of the youngest people to start a company. Now it's Better Wealth, and essentially Better Wealth is the company that I get to work and run today. And we serve people all across the world, majority in the States and Canada. It's been an amazing journey, and I've learned a ton from that. But that was my journey, and it definitely, there's a lot of days, if I'm being honest, that were frustrating. I'm just so grateful that I stayed consistent and I just didn't give up.
So, as you were going through, you mentioned going through college, weren't even sure that there's something you're going to be completing. What was it about the world of finance
Yeah.
and money that interested you? Because you obviously also mentioned it's like, cool, you understand their why, you understand what people get up for, why they want to do something, which is really applicable to any industry. So, what was it about money and finance where you were like, this is where I want to kind of plant my flag?
Yeah, great question. I think a lot of people that don't have a good relationship with money see it almost as the status itself. See it as that thing that if they feel like if you had more paper dollars, you'd be happier. For me, I just see it to as a means to the end. I believe money is an amazing tool. It's just a medium of exchange. And if you know how to use it, you can literally help more people, create a bigger impact. I'm very passionate person about things that I believe in, and if I can attain it, if I can use it well, I can literally be a more effective person. I made a mission statement for myself that simply reads, "Help people see and reach their highest potential." The sad reality is a lot of people aren't even living to a fraction of their potential because they don't understand how to use money as a tool. So I think all those, I just realized that, man, if I really wanted to make a difference, like if I really wanted to make a difference in this world, I need to understand how to use money in the context of time. And you also can't forget about your health because I think health has a lot to do with wealth as well. And so I just think I got that at a young age. And also like that one of the guys that was like very early on and helped me co-found Better Wealth died of cancer. And I think that also gives me a lot of perspective. And so in this journey, I've learned and I've had highs and I've had lows, and I've realized that money doesn't solve your problems, but it sure does help things, especially if you have the right mindset and the right foundation.
So I know that you work with people all over the world, but I'd love to just go to for your own personal context. What was one of the first things that you had a realization about, and how did you kind of leverage money to be able to benefit you? Because I know a lot of people sometimes they're like, yeah, but like, does that mean I need to save a lot? Does that mean I need to invest a lot? Does that mean I need to buy shares, property? Well, I want to ask you a question about like crypto and things like that, and your thoughts on that area also. But for yourself, what was one of the first things that you were like, cool, this is how I can make money almost, work for me so I can achieve my highest potential?
One of the biggest things that I just realized is majority of people we're being taught, and go anywhere, any country you go, you're being taught this, that what you should be doing is saving money, investing it in what I call the hope plan, and just go live your life. And I think for a lot of people that's totally fine. Actually, they should do that because they'll spend it if they have the money. But for me, I had this dilemma, and the dilemma was essentially like I knew that if I invested in myself or had money liquid, that I think I could have used that as a tool to do some amazing things. And I'm an example of what I did. But then I also realized that a lot of people are not being taught how to do that well. And it kind of hit me when you look at a balance sheet, there's assets and liabilities. Liabilities are debts. And so you take your assets, anything of worthwhile, whether they're retirement plans, real estate, or whatever, you subtract it with debt, you get your net worth statement. What's interesting to me is you will not find your name on a balance sheet. So in other words, what I'm saying is we can list all your assets, anything of value, and all your debts, and you get a number. And that number ultimately tells you your net worth. What's crazy is I really believe that you are your number one asset. I really do believe that because you're the derivative of everything. Like, think about this, everything that you have today is most likely because of you, your ability to work, your ability to provide value, and yet, we are in an industry that literally devalues, that's a made up word, by the way, devalues your ability to see yourself as your greatest asset. I just saw that so many people were not living in a way that were enhancing their time and how they were thinking. And so I just saw the stress that that played. And so when I took a step back, I was like, I want to use my money to bet on me. And that's exactly what I did. I invested in the market early on. I never lost money in the market. I had just to say, like, I graduated college where most people have debt. I had over $30,000 invested, no debt. I cashed my money out of the market to invest in myself. And now we have a 7+ figure business. We're in almost all 50 states in the United States. We have 16 people and counting on our team. You might say like that was a dumb move, but I got really clear on what I actually wanted. The other thing that I'll say is it's very, very important to me that people get really clear on what their ROR is. ROR for me stands for return on result. Wall Street will say it's rate of return. I don't think rate of return really matters a ton because you can't spend a rate of return. A rate of return doesn't create value for you personally. But if you can design your life, your time, your money, your abilities in a way to strategically and deliberately give you the kind of life that you want to live, I'm telling you, you will live a more wealthy life now and in the future. And that's our whole mission at Better Wealth is to live intentionally. And so it just, I think for me, it just, I realized this is what I want and this is what I'm going to do today to get that. And, and when I realized that money could just be pouring fuel on that, I was like, this is amazing.
Have you ever read the book The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho?
I have not.
I highly recommend you check that book out because a lot of the things that you're saying there is like a similar overarching belief in that book, which is around, well, my interpretation of it anyway, right? So it's like the alchemist is someone who can turn like lead into gold, right, in
Yep.
old times. And for me, I always say, it's like if you're a business owner or if you're someone who is investing in yourself and wanting to have better wealth and grow, you really become an alchemist, which is like, cool, you can turn anything into gold, money, results for yourself. It's in like exponential rate of result on yourself because I look at it from a marketing perspective. It's like, cool, I click a few buttons, I put up an ad, people
Yeah.
inquire, I speak to them, they give me money for me to help them do the same thing. I'm like, man, that's like, to me, it's like I just made money come from nothing by typing. You know what I mean? Like I just typed and put up an ad, and then suddenly people inquire, and then we've got sales and we've got a business that's growing. So I wholeheartedly agree with all your points that you said there. Now, if someone, like, when people first come to you, because obviously, like, and I love that you've got a more, I'll say, like, esoteric approach to money and wealth and growth. Like, what are some of the things that you see a lot? And again, as I say, like all over the world or even locally, what are some of the mistakes that people are making with their wealth or with their money? Obviously, you mentioned a few already, that mistakes that people can make, being like, I'm just going to hope and just put money away and do
Yeah.
nothing. But is there anything that you see like quite consistently across the board? You're like, shouldn't have done
So
that. You shouldn't have done that.
yeah, two things, and really take this in context. I a lot of times are critical on people that make a lot of money that just wastefully invest it. So for instance, I think the number one mistake I see in this category of people that have a lot of potential is they make money, they want to do the right thing, but they invest it in assets and other things that don't actually give them the result that they want. So it's like on one hand, there's the story of a business owner that's killing it in business, could reinvest in their own business and continue to grow, took a lot of their money, invested it in other investments that are not necessarily liquid. You could maybe get an 8, 9, 10, 12% rate of return. And what you're doing is you're starving your business and dramatically potentially taking yourself out of business to maybe get a good rate of return. And I look at that and go, that you're being dumb. Like, why are you doing that? Why are you starving this thing that's feeding you to begin with? So I think a lot of business owners, they have this tendency of like, hey, I should do this account or I should do this account instead of taking a step back and saying, where's the best place for my money now and in the future? We have to understand that there's two types of elements here. There's a long-term time value of money, pretty much saying any decision I make today, my dollars are worth way more than a dollar. So if you lose a dollar today, it's worth way more than just a dollar that you lost. If you save a dollar and it's saved in a place that could earn interest, the dollar is going to be worth more than a dollar in the future. But then there's also the control element of, especially if you're a business owner or if you're a marketer listening to this, you have to understand that you having control over capital could be far greater than a compound dollar. And so you just have to understand, like, where can I get my best value bang for my buck? But we need to understand that there's a compounding and control, and they're very much at war with each other. So that's number one. And so if you're an entrepreneur, really, really take a step back and ask yourself, what do you really want? And put your money in a place that will help you get there. I stress that, but I see so many entrepreneurs trying to do the right thing and they're starving themselves in the process. That's number one. Number two, most people are broke because of themselves. It's a heart issue. They have no discipline. They're not. I just interviewed today actually the a Millionaire Next Door author. And while the Millionaire Next Door has, I mean, a lot of people have opinions. Essentially, it was just a study of millionaires and how they essentially, like, I could summarize the book. Like, they didn't spend money. They were frugal. They didn't have their identity in the newest car or the newest watch. And I'm not here to judge. I just know a lot of times people are broke and it's the behavior that the reason why they're broke, and they do this behavior because they're trying to impress their friends that they don't even like. And it's just so evident. I see it so often, and I just think people really needs to take a step back and say like who am I trying to impress here and what's actually important to me? Because a lot of people are spending a lot of money on things that they don't even value.
I think that's 100% spot on, and it's a very good one. So most of the time, with most things, it's like first you have to look inward before you can look outward, right? And even same with like when we have people coming for, and I always just tie it back to our business, like for marketing and things like that. It's like the only time if a business is not working effectively is normally because there's an issue with like the founder or the head or the CEO, and it's like they need to get past that first before then they're like, oh, like why aren't we getting this result? It's like, well, because at some point somehow you seem to be self-sabotaging the result here by like maybe not calling the leads or only doing this or only speaking to these people. And it's like, yeah, when that generates that result, right? And it's like until they fix that, it's nothing else is going to be able to solve that problem. What have you noticed, obviously, with everything that's happened recently in all the global crises and things like that? And a lot of people are like touting and saying, cool, there's been some form of recession, if not depression, around the world. And, some people are saying, the worst is yet to come. What's your viewpoint on that? Number one, I would love to hear just insight from from the US and Canada, that like the North America's viewpoint, and then like the globally as well.
Yeah. At the time of this recording, we had one of our worst days in the stock market. So definitely a lot of volatility. I think one thing that I'm seeing is even in this whole pandemic, housing prices skyrocketed. I don't know if you experience the same. And so things that I don't fully understand. It's like, oh, record number of people are unemployed and losing their job, yet housing prices are at an all-time high and the stock market's at an all-time high. And you could they're really it's because of interest rates and the economy and our government's printing money and money's got to go somewhere. So and a lot of that is kind of funny money. I always go back to this. A lot of people ask, okay, what about inflation? Like what happens during like doom and gloom? And we can talk about crypto, we can talk about gold. But I always go back to this. Whoever creates value in the world will always be able to feed their family. So yeah, we can talk about gold, we can talk about crypto, we can talk about these investment strategies. And at the end of the day, if it really gets that bad, I would much rather have a garden, potentially guns. Don't take me out of context, but like I would much rather have certain things, and like the person that's always able to create value will always be fine. Whether crypto's our new currency, whether we're exchanging with like we're going back to bargaining, like anything like you create value, you will be able to attract certain things to you. And so what I always go to back to is make sure whatever you're doing, make sure that you're investing, make sure whatever you're spending your time and money, make sure that there's value being created. That's going to be the way that you get through hard times. Don't invest in a get rich quick deal or don't invest in a fad because it might be great, but if it goes away, like it just go back to the value creation. And that's that ultimately, regardless of where we go in this world, the people that will always be fine are going to be the people that innovate through their ability to create value. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of entrepreneurship, is because these are individuals that literally are in business because they know how to create value. And I think they will be better off, quite frankly, when things get tough because they're already getting conditioned to survive.
And you mentioned a few things there: gold and silver, crypto, some of my favorite topics and things to look at and see. If someone comes to you and they're like, cool, Caleb, this is something, obviously, let's just paint a scenario that most of their other stuff is in alignment. They're not starving their businesses, they're investing in themselves. They have some of that extra cash. Like, when do you see as a time that someone should be investigating like one of those
Yeah.
two options? Because some people are like, cool, you use it as a bit of a hedge against other things. Some people are like,
Yeah.
no, the gold silver ratio is completely off and it's going to go crazy and blah blah blah. And same for cryptos and stuff. Like, what's your, like, again, obviously, guys, this is not financial advice, this is just me and
Yeah.
Caleb having a chat, so take
Yeah,
anything
don't
that you
sue
hear
me.
lightly. Yeah, so like, it's clean slate here. You can say anything you like, any viewpoint you like.
Yeah, I think this will resonate with a lot of your listeners. Is there's no such thing as like a bad investment. So like I could, I could I could talk all day about real estate. I literally wrote a book on life insurance, by the way. I could talk about life insurance. I wrote a book. You could talk about index funds. You could talk about gold. And a common question that someone will give is like, where should I invest my money? And I go back to number one, are you maximizing what you're currently doing as an individual? And if the answer is no, if you're like making half of what you should make, you should honestly just go back to figuring out how to double your ability to make money. Cause that's in most cases, that's the number one way that people can change their life. After that, it goes back to there's no such thing as a bad investment. It's just in the investor. There's a lot of bad investors out there. So if you're someone that's reading a headline and then saying, "Oh, I want to go into crypto because it's the hottest thing," I would encourage you to pump the brakes. But the person that's listening to me that studies crypto and has specialized knowledge in it, who am I to say, go for it? Because you can find money in any area. Option trading, the market, real estate. Real estate is one of those things where a lot of people love to talk about. Robert Kiyosaki, it's amazing. It hopefully will appreciate, grow in value. You'll create cash flow. There's certain tax benefits. You can use leverage to acquire it. Does that mean everyone should do real estate? No. There's a lot of people that lose their shirts on real estate because they suck as an investor and they don't understand what they're doing. So it's just like it goes back to invest in yourself, and then wherever you put your money, really don't like I guess be very valuable in this sense of creating specialized knowledge, because that's what's really going to pay off. So hopefully that makes sense, because I think, like, again, if you don't know what you want to do and you want to just get an average return, put your money in some kind of index. But I don't think a lot of people listen to podcasts to be average.
That's very true. And just out of my own personal curiosity, right? You mentioned insurance, and I've been seeing some people that have been talking about different strategies and whatnot in America. Because from my understanding, we don't have this in Australia, and it always kind of blew my mind. Someone's like, "Oh yeah, I have like 3 insurance policies because it gives me this, this, and this." Just like in layman terms, just because I'm sitting there going, wow, like how does it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand. Like in layman's terms, how does that work in the US? Because to me, I was
Yeah.
like, this seems
This
kind of crazy.
if you're listening to this in the USA or Canada, take notes. I save over 6 figures a year into life insurance. Okay. My book is called The And Asset. And so essentially what I'm doing is, remember when I was telling you about control and compounding, and those are like two things that are like kind of fighting each other? When I save my money into what we call overfunded insurance, so what I'm overpaying for the insurance benefit, I'm getting the least amount of insurance as I can and maximizing the cash. What I'm essentially doing is I'm able to save money. It's going to grow tax free, without fees, without losses, for the rest of my life. Could be the next 60, 70 years. Conservatively grow. But I also am able to use it like a personal bank to then, leverage it to do other things like invest in my business, invest in real estate, invest in crypto, gold, you name it. But my money is still growing tax free while I'm able to leverage it. So now I'm creating a foundation that's not just protecting my family and my future, but I'm also being able to grow my money tax free long term, while I'm also maintaining full control over my money to hopefully multiply. There's all kinds of other benefits as well. But I wrote a book on this. I'm in the process of making a documentary. And it's one of those things where it's like we have to take a step back. Remember, I'm not saying you can't invest in insurance, but it's an amazing savings vehicle. It's amazing. And so if you do live in the US or have the ability to get here, there's strategies that you may want to look into that create a lot of velocity and give a dollar more than one job.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy because we don't have anything like that in Australia. And I've seen a few people posting and talking about it, and I was like, we just pay a monthly premium, and then if something bad happens, we get
Yeah.
benefit. And then I said, because then someone was like, yeah, I've got 4, and I'm like, why would you, like? What do you mean you have 4? Like, it
Yeah.
just makes no sense to me. And like that, now that you said that, it's like, oh, okay, it clears it up a little bit for me.
Yeah. Most life
Yeah.
insurance is an expense. This type of life insurance that I wrote my book on is an asset. That's the
Mm.
biggest difference.
I love that. So, Caleb, as we get towards the end of our time here together, I always like to ask the same question at the end of my podcast, which is, what's a question that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I think one of the questions I ask all my guests on my show is the legacy question, which
Mm.
essentially is, if this was your last day on earth and you were with the people that you love the most, what would you tell them? Because I just feel like that is a great way to summarize a conversation. And also you get at the deepest root of why someone believes what they believe.
Yeah. So now you give me that question. Let's hear the answer.
I've been thinking a lot about this. I think part of what I'm going to do on my show is interview people that are on their deathbed, because I'm so fascinated with how many people that are floating through their life and that are living life not intentionally. And so one of the things that I would share with the people that I love the most is, number one, like, I would reassure them that I love them. And then I would just be like, hey, listen, like, life is one of the greatest gifts. It's in the great, like, don't try to do the odds of being born because it's literally a miracle that we are here. And yet so many people are living and they're not even living intentionally. So I would encourage everybody listening, and I would encourage the people that I would be talking to really embrace their life and take it as a gift and use it to give to others. And there's an exercise that I have a lot of people as our clients do. And it's essentially you get a piece of paper and you write 100 boxes. And those 100 boxes each box represents a year of your life. And then just start shading in the boxes that you've already lived. Now I'm young, I'm 24. But I'm telling you, I've already lived 1/4 of my life if I even live to 100. Now, I might live longer. I'm healthy. Okay.
I'm on that 150 target, man, at
There you
least.
go. Okay. So okay. But still it goes quickly. And that's the crazy thing is there are people that are in their 70s and 80s that are a billionaire that would trade places with me. And I don't think a lot of people are living like that. I think it's easy to look and say, I wish, I wish, I wish. An 80-year-old who has $1 billion net worth would trade places with you. And so I just think perspective is huge. And I just see so many people floating, not living intentionally. And I'm telling you, like the people that I've interviewed that have lost their life, like they've never regretted going for it. And so I just want to give people the permission to do that.
I think that's something pretty special and awesome to finish on there. So thank you for that. Now, for anyone that's been listening and they're like, I kind of like the cut of this Caleb guy, this jib. How do they get in touch with you? How do they find out more about what you guys are up to?
Yeah. So regardless of where you're in, you can go to our website, betterwealth.com, and we actually have an assessment tool. You hit our assessment. We actually have a tool that shows you how much money you need to save to be financially balanced. And the page explains more of that, but it's one of the only tools out there that gives you a really quick snapshot of like how much money you need to save, how much money you need to make. It just gives you like an idea of where you're at. And so that's big. And then if you love podcasts, I have a podcast called Better Wealth with Caleb Guilliams. And I have a daily show where I interview certain people, but then I also have short episodes. And yes, there's some strategies like the and asset that if you live in Canada or the US, you can take advantage of. But for the most part, wealth has everything to do with how you think. I really do believe that. And so those are the ways that you can stay in my world.
Amazing. So, you guys, whether you're listening or watching this, please check out the show notes, wherever they are, and we'll have all the links to Caleb and his business on there as well, so you guys can connect and find out more. And if you know anyone that is, like maybe they're struggling, or maybe they're already successful in investing and growing their wealth and their health and their lives, make sure you share this episode with them. Share it around so that they can hear a bit more of Caleb's message, and maybe do some of those activities and shade in some of those boxes for those years and see if you guys are living intentionally or just floating by. So absolutely love that. Caleb, once again, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you making the time.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Cheers.